Good morning, dear students. All are well, right? All are preparing for examination, right? So this is the second video of our series. So through this series, we are going to discuss the important PYQs and answers of Econ 9, Money, Banking and Financial Institution. In this video, we are going to discuss the important PYQs of block number 1, unit 3 and 4. We already uploaded one video of unit 1 and 2 PYQs. Okay, those who didn't visit, please visit it. And if you like the content, please like, share and subscribe. Okay, so one more thing, if you are in need of the PPT's PDF, then please follow our Telegram channel, IGNOU e-Learning Hub. Link will be provided in the description box. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So first we are going to discuss the important topics or the important PYQs from these two units. The first important question is quantity theory of money. What are its significance? Then demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, differences between them. Explain the concept of inflation. Then Keynesian theory of money and prices. Then what are the effects of inflation on different sectors of the economy and how you can control the inflation. So these are the important topics or the important PYQs from these two units, right? Okay, let's get started. So the first topic of this unit is quantity theory of money. So last video we discussed about different theories of demand for money. Cambridge approach, classical approach or Fisher's approach and Keynesian approach. Okay, so those who didn't visit that video, please go through it, you will get the concepts clear. Okay, so then the quantity theory states that in this equation MV equal to PT, where MV is the supply side and PT is the demand side, where M is the quantity of money in circulation, V is the velocity of circulation, P is the general price level and T is the volume of transaction, right? So MV equal to PT, here other factors remain unchanged. The change in the price level are directly related to the changes in the supply of money. So here any change in the supply of money is directly proportional to the change in the general price level. So that is the basic concept of quantity theory. So quantity theory of money has two approaches: cash transaction approach or Fisherian version and the cash balance approach or the Cambridge version. Okay, so last video we discussed about the Fisher version. According to Fisher approach, the people demand money because of their transaction need. So the amount of money demand is directly proportional to the volume of transaction. Okay, that is MV equal to PT, where T is the volume of transaction, right? So that is the Fisher approach. In Cambridge approach, we discussed that the amount of money demanded by an economy is directly proportional to the volume of transaction. Along with that, people needs to keep certain amount of money with them so as to meet the precautionary needs, right? So the cash balance approach, they are not in need of money only for the spending. They need money for keeping certain amount of money with them as a precautionary one, right? So that is cash balance approach. We discussed about it in an elaborate manner in the previous video. Just go through it. Okay, so the transaction approach to the quantity theory of money, it was proposed by Simon Newcomb and Irving Fisher. So it is also known as the Fisherian version, right? So the equation is MV equal to PT. So M is the quantity of money in circulation, V is the velocity of circulation, and T is the volume of transaction, right? Okay, so this, according to the cash transaction approach, the quantity of money in an economy depend upon two aspects. Okay, so the first aspect is the quantity of cash with the public. Okay, so how much amount of cash or how much money the public holds with them. Next one is velocity of circulation of the cash, that is M and V. So we know that in an economy, cash does not remain idle. Okay, so in the event of transaction, money changes hand, we discussed about the velocity of circulation, right? Velocity of circulation of money, right? The average number of times a currency note changes hands during the given period of time, so that is known as the velocity of circulation. Yesterday we discussed that if a 100 rupee note, you have 100 rupees with you, you bought something and you gave that 100 rupee to Y, and that Y again spent that 100 rupee to Z, and Z again spend that 100 rupees to another person, right? So that means that 100 rupee is transacting among different people, so that is known as velocity of circulation. Okay, so when we multiply the average velocity of money, that is V, with the quantity of cash in the hand, that is M into V, right? So this is when we are multiplying the average amount of money with the quantity of cash, that is M into V in the economy during the year, then that will give you the total supply. So I told you that is MV is the total supply. Clear? Okay, so the total demand for money there would be equal to the total value of goods and service transacted during that period. So we can say that the supply side equal to P equal PT, okay, equal to total demand side. Okay, supply side is MV and the total demand is the, when we are multiplying the volume of goods and service transacted, that is T, by the average price of these goods and service, that is the price level. So that is the total demand. MV equal to total supply and PT is the total demand. So when we are equating these, we will get MV equal to PT. Clear? Okay, so here in this equation, what is P? That is the price level, that is average price level, equal to MV divided by T. Clear? So in the above equation implies that the price level at a given point of time is the ratio of the total money supply to the total volume of goods and service transacted at that time. So MV is the total supply demand, that divided by the volume of goods and service transacted at a particular period of time, is directly proportional to the price level. So if any variation happen in the price level, it has an impact in the total supply of money in that economy, right? So that is okay. So now there are certain assumptions regarding the quantity theory of cash transaction approach. The first assumption is V and T are constant. Okay, so we know that the equation equal to PT, MV equal to PT. So this is the supply side and this is the demand side, right? So the assumptions are V and T are the constant. Okay, so from this equation we can write P equal to MV divided by T. Clear? Okay, so the second assumption is that any variation in M that is the change in the quantity of cash in hand varies, then it can lead to variation in the price level, right? Okay, so clear? Then P does not change by itself. Clear? That is okay. So these are the important assumptions of this theory. Okay, so according to this Fisherian approach, the change in the quantity of money, that is M, are the exclusive cause of change in the price level. So we can say that which is the causative and which is the effect. Causative, the reason behind the change in the price level is the change in the quantity of money. So that is one of the important assumption of quantity theory of cash transaction approach, and many critics widely criticized this concept. Okay, that is, the change in the price level has happened only due to the change in the quantity of money. Okay, so that is one of the more critically acclaimed assumption of this Fisher approach. Okay, so now we are going to discuss the criticism of cash transaction approach. So the first one is V and T remains constant. So that's the first assumption. Okay, but in reality V and T is not a constant. If any variation in M happen, that has an impact on V and T also, right? Second is that M affects P only, like I told. If any variation in the change in the quantity of cash in hand, that is M, it can lead to the change in the price level. But in this theory, it's not saying that if any change in P, it can lead to change in M. Okay, so that is the second one. Then the third one is that mutual interdependence, that is, if M varies, P varies, and if P varies, M also varies. So that is not explained. So that is the third criticism. And the last one is that the quantity theory is static in the theory may apply to a community which is living under static conditions. Static means it's not moving, it's a stable one. There is no variation or no change from the existing situation. So it is applicable only in a static society. So these are some of the criticism of cash. Okay, next you have to learn 4 to 5 criticism. Okay, so in your textbook around 13 points are there, so I am just explaining all these things. So the next one is it ignores not only the certain monetary factors but also the non-monetary factors. Then the next one is this theory assumes that the existence of full employment and postulate that beyond full employment any increase in M will result in an increased P. Okay, so that is, it is based on an assumption that in a full employed society, okay, and beyond the full employment, after full employment happen, any increase in the M, if any change in the M, that is increase in M, can lead to an increase in P. Okay, so then another thing is that when there are unemployed resources, the supply curve of the output would be elastic, and such increase in the money supply M can lead to an increase in the real income and output rather than in price. Then Fisher only explained the change in M result in the change in P. Okay, so that we already discussed. So he ignores the fact that money is also, so we already discussed that in the cash transaction approach, it is focused on the which concept of money, that is, money is considered as a medium of exchange only, but it's not considering the fact that money can act as a store of value. Okay, so it denies the speculative actives and precautionary active, right? So then the equation of exchange cannot express a change in the structure of relative prices caused by the monetary factors. Okay, so interest rate also is not linked with the money and the price. So these are some of the criticism regarding the cash transaction approach. You have to learn the equation, that is MV equal to PT, where MV, that is the total supply of money in the economy, is directly proportional to the change in the price level. Okay, and it's explaining that V and T are constant, that is the velocity of circulation and volume of transaction are considered as constant, and if any change in the quantity of money demanded, that is M, it can lead to the change in the price level. Okay, so these are some of the important concepts related to the cash transaction approach. I hope the concept is clear. Okay, now we are moving to the next approach, that is the cash balance approach or the Cambridge version. Okay, so when we discuss the Cambridge approach in the last video, I told you that, okay, in the cash transaction approach, the money is considered as a medium of exchange, but in the Cambridge version, money is considered as a store of value too, along with the medium of exchange, and also a store of value. That is, it is a person have 1,000 rupees with him. Okay, he is not spending the entire 1,000 rupees, but he is spending only certain amount of money, and the remaining amount of money is keeping with him so that he can meet some emergency needs in future, right? So that is a precautionary motive, right? Okay, so Pigot stated that the quantity theory somewhat differently when he put the cash balance equation. Okay, according to that approach, that we discussed the Cambridge equation. What is Cambridge equation? That is MD equal to K into Y. Okay, so Y can be written as P into small y, where P is the price level and small y is the real income, right? Okay, and K is a constant, and that constant is known as the Cambridge constant. Okay, and Cambridge constant stands for the proportion of total real income to be maintained in legal tender. So in the last video we discussed that K will give you, the Cambridge constant will give you an idea of how much amount of money the people want to hold with them for meeting the precautionary needs, right? So that is Cambridge constant. Okay, so there is a way, there is some changes happen to this equation, and it is now written as, okay, P equal to, here when we are saying that MD equal to KY, then Y, then we can write it as MD equal to K into P into Y, right? Clear? So that can be remodified as P equal to K into R by M. Okay, where R is the real income, and total real income, and K stand for the proportion of total real income that to be maintained in legal tender, and M is the total unit of legal tender, and P represent the value or purchasing power of the money. Okay, but we know that people do not hold cash strictly in the form of legal tender money. Some of them hold a part of it in the bank deposit also. So there is a modification happened to that equation, that is M is equal to KR by P into C plus H into 1 minus C. Okay, in this equation C represent the proportion of K, that is proportion of amount the people want, the community wants to hold in the form of actual legal tender, and H is stand for the proportion of legal tender money which is kept in the form of bank deposit. Okay, so another similar equation is M is equal to K into P into T, where M represent the cash with the public, P is the price level, and T is the total amount of goods and services, and K is the fraction of T for which the people wish to keep in cash. Okay, so that is, you have to learn that according to the Cambridge version, the people are not spending the entire money for the transaction. They are keeping certain amount of money with them so that they can meet the precautionary needs, right? So that's all coming under Cambridge version. Okay, so there are certain criticism for cash balance approach also. The introduction of the factor R, that is the represent the current income of the economy, suggests that change in its quantity is one of the important factors that directly influence the demand for cash reserve. So that is not true. Okay, so according to that equation, what is the equation here? That is P equal to R in R divided by M into K, right? Okay, so the introduction of R is the total real income or the current income of the community. Okay, it suggests that the quantity, change in the quantity is one of the important factors that directly influence the demand for cash reserve. According to Keynesian theory, the importance given to the proportion of bank deposit to the community's income is misleading. Then cash balance equation does not throw light on the disturbance which occur owing to the change in the proportion in which deposits are held for different purposes like saving, business and income. Then another one is Cambridge also ignore the speculative demand. The cash transaction approach and cash balance approach ignore the speculative demand for money. So here they are, the Cambridge approach only the precautionary plus transaction. Okay, transaction demand and precautionary demands only it explain. Okay, it ignore the speculative demand. Okay, but in the case of cash transaction approach, cash transaction approach focus only on the transaction approach. It ignores both the precautionary as well as the speculative demand, right? Okay. So this approach does not furnish an adequate monetary theory which could be used to explain and analyze the dynamic behavior of prices in the economy. So these two theories, that is the cash balance approach and the cash transaction approach, are not suitable for a dynamic economy. So that is, in a dynamic economy the price is changing and everything in the economy is getting changed, okay, but these two are applicable for a static economy, that is stable pricing is happening there, okay. So these are the criticism of cash. Now we are going to discuss the comparison between the cash balance approach and the cash transaction approach, okay. So the first difference is cash transaction approach looks upon money as a flow. Cash balance approach looks money as a stock, okay. Like I told, here only for the transaction, here transaction plus precautionary, clear. Second one, Fisher's approach emphasizes velocity of money, while Pigovian approach stresses ideal balance kept as a part of national income, okay. So here it is emphasizing on V, that is Fisher approach is emphasizing on V, here it is emphasizing on K, that is the amount of money the people wants to hold with them, that is the ideal one, okay, for precautionary demand, okay. Then the third difference is cash balance approach is considered as superior one, okay. So because it considered two demands, that is transaction demand and precautionary demand. Then the fourth point is, by focusing attention on cash balance which people like to hold, the cash balance approach highlights the subjective valuation of the individual. So according to Marshall, the chief merit of cash balance equation is that it removes the serious complication which creep in when we establish a relationship between velocity of money in circulation and value of money, as has been done in the cash transaction approach, okay. So that is the differences between the cash balance approach and cash transaction approach. So first one is, it is cash transaction approach consider money as a flow. For the transaction only, cash balance transaction plus precautionary need. Fisherian approach focus on velocity of money. Then Pigovian approach focus on Cambridge constant K or ideal balance. Cash balance approach is comparatively superior to cash transaction, okay. So cash balance approach is highlight the subjective valuation of individual, and according to Marshall, the chief merit of cash balance equation is that when it removes a serious complication. Here it is not considering the relationship between the velocity of money in circulation and value of money, clear. So these are the important differences between cash balance and cash transaction. Okay, now we are moving to the next theory, that is Keynesian theory of money and prices, okay. So according to the classical theory of money, it aimed at the stationary equilibrium, that is it is applicable in a static economy, okay, while Keynesian are largely concerned with the changing economy, that is in a applicable for a dynamic economy, okay. So he denies any direct relationship, causal relationship between increase in the quantity of money and rise in the level of prices, okay. So here he is not he is considering the fact that, okay, the money does not directly affect the price level. So that is the first takeaway. Then second one is, change in the quantity of money can lead to the change in the rate of interest, okay. According to Keynesian theory, there are three demands, that is transaction demand, then precautionary demand and the speculative demand. So transaction demand means people are in need of money so that they can do the transaction. Then people need money so that they can go with the transaction. Along with that, they can keep certain amount of money with them so that they can meet the precautionary need. So that is LP. LS means people demand more money when they are in need for investing that money, right? So that is a speculative motive. So they are not going to spend that money now. They will keep the money with them and they will invest that money at the proper time, right? Okay. So the Keynesian theory state that an increase in the quantity of money increases the amount of money available for satisfying the liquidity needs, and so that it can fulfill the speculative motive. Okay, a lowering of rate of interest, it tends to increase the effective demand for investment. Okay, so that is when the interest rate is low, okay, it tends to increase effective demand for investment, which in turn associated with the rising income, employment and output. Okay, so according to him, when rise in income happen, okay, output and employment also increases, okay, prices may start rising. So that we say that people have money with them, the more employment in the society or in the economy, okay, more people are employed, more resources are getting, more outputs are producing, so definitely the prices also start rising. Okay, so even before the full employment point is reached. Okay, why it's happened? Mainly the reason is that productive resources are not homogeneous. Okay, so that means an increase in the output can involve diminishing return, and increasing supply prices and the unit of cost of all factors remain unchanged. Then the wage rate is very likely to increase with the increase in output. More output means the people will demand for more wages. Okay, so the prices of other factors also will get increased. Okay, so that is happening in the normal economy. So people have enough money with them, so they will start spending, so their standard of living is increased, right? So that means the money flow in the economy will be more. Okay, so that all has an impact in the demand for money, right? So according to this Keynesian theory, the all factors like the change in the income, output, employment, change in the cost of production, change in the rate of interest, all these can lead to the change in the price of goods and services. Okay, not only the change in the demand for money. Okay, so both other theories specify that change in the money can only lead to change in price. Okay, so that is the cash transaction approach and cash balance approach says like that. But Keynesian approach state that the change in the rate of interest, volume of investment can change, then change in the income, output, employment, along with the change in the cost of production, all these factors can lead to the change in the price of goods and service. Okay, so that is the main difference between Keynesian approach and the other two approaches. Okay, clear, right? So in the previous approaches, only if there is a change in M, then there is a change in P. Okay, here not only the change in M, the other factors also play a pivotal role in the change in the price of goods and services. Okay, so what are the criticism of Keynesian theory? So Keynesian theory is too general. It is therefore difficult to study actual price changes with the help of Keynesian theory. So it explains many factors, so we cannot come to a conclusion that so this is the exact reason for change in the price level. Second one, it is basically static in nature, even though it implies for a dynamic environment, but we cannot completely rely on it. Then Keynesian theory holds that the level of output can be changed by changing the quantity of money, which in turn depend upon rate of interest. But in real economy, it is possible only if other conditions of cost and revenue operate appropriately. So these are some of the criticism of Keynesian theory, right? Okay, so we discussed quantity theory of money. Under that we discussed the transaction approach and cash transaction approach and cash balance approach. Then we discussed the comparison between these two. Then Keynesian theory of money and prices also we discussed. So according to the Keynesian theory, that is the change in the quantity of money can lead to the change in the rate of interest, it can lead to the change in the investment, and it can lead to the change in the output and employment, and it can lead to change in the cost of production, and it can lead to change in price. So that is various factors plays a role in the change in the price level, not only the change in the quantity of money, right? So that we discussed. So the last topic of this unit is inflation. So what do you mean by inflation? So inflation is the rise in the general price level of a goods and service in an economy over a period of time. Okay, so according to Crowther, inflation is a state in which the value of money is falling and prices are rising. Okay, in general, in economics, we can say that inflation refers to the general rise in the price measured against the standard level of purchasing power. So it reduces the purchasing power of money. So for example, you have 100 rupees with you. Okay, so last month you purchased for example 2 kgs of apple, just an example. Okay, 2 kgs of apple you got with this 100 rupees. Okay, so this month with this 100 rupees you are getting only 1 kg. That means money value is falling. With the same 100 rupees, now we are getting only 1 kg of apple, right? So that is also an inflation. Okay, so inflation reduces the purchasing power of money. Okay, with 100 rupees previously you used to get 2 kg, now you are getting only 1 kg. So that means it reduces the purchasing money power of money. So that means the same 100 rupee you can buy less solely. Okay, so it's a recurring phenomenon. And while we are measuring the inflation, we used to take into account large number of goods and services used by the people of a country, and then I'll calculate the average increase. That is, we used to use the wholesale price index and the consumer price index for calculating this inflation, right? Inflation is a state of rising prices. Okay, so next is what is deflation. Deflation can be defined as the state of falling prices but not fall in prices. Okay, so inflation, and there are different types of deflation is when the general level of prices is falling. So that is the opposite of inflation, so also referred as disinflation. Inflation means rising prices, fall in prices, deflation or disinflation. Okay, so lack of inflation. Normal level of inflation is necessary for an economy to move or economy to sustain. But if deflation or disinflation happens, that means economy is in the weakening mode, right? Okay, next is hyperinflation. So hyperinflation is unusually the rapid inflation. It will stay for a short span of time. Okay, in extreme cases it can lead to the breakdown of the national monetary system. Then in 2008 and 9 this real estate crisis happened in UAE and all. So these are for a short span of time. Then the economy revive from that. So that phenomena we can consider as a hyperinflation. Due to the COVID also we can consider it's a for a short period of time this type of rapid inflation happens. So that is known as hyperinflation. So inflation means rise in price, deflation means fall in price, hyperinflation means rapid inflation for a short span of time. Clear? Okay, so one more thing can add up, that is stagflation. So stagflation is a common word now. What is stagflation? That is high inflation plus low growth plus unemployment. So that is prevailing in almost all the economies currently due to this pandemic, right? That is known as clear. Now we are going to discuss what are the reason behind this inflation. So the primary causes are, okay, so the primary causes can be the increase in primary causes means we used to say demand is high, supply is low, it can lead to inflation. So that is one of the reason. Then increase in public spending, government is spending a lot, so people are getting enough loan, they can accommodate many things, so they used to spend more, so that means the price level will increase, so demand will be high, the supply will be low, so that can also lead to inflation. Then increased velocity of circulation, the population growth, more population, then more demand, then less supply, that can lead to it. Hoarding, that is particularly the onion, then onion cost, then black markets and hoarding can lead to a sudden or a steep increase in the price of certain commodities, so that is hoarding, right? Then genuine shortage, sometimes during to the monsoon, poor monsoon, or sometimes due to these natural calamities, it can lead to the less production of goods and all, and that can lead to the genuine shortage, that can also lead to the inflation, right? Then exports, are more, exports are more, but we have less imports, that can also leads to inflation. Then we are then trade union, that means when the cost of production increases, that can also leads to the inflation. Then people demands more money, that is the labor unions and trade unions are forcing the company to give the more money, so that can affect the cost of production, and that can leads to also inflation. Then tax reduction, then impose less taxes means people have more disposable income, so that can also lead to inflation. Then price rise in the international market, so the price rise in the international market and the oil price, this is one of the most hot topic of our economy. So when people used to make hue and cry about oil price hike, right? Okay, so the government used to come with a comment that okay, so the international market price is high, so that's why we have to pay a lot for buying these oil, right? So these all are some of the reason behind the inflation, right? Now there are certain non-economic reasons also, that includes if there is a flood, then crops are destroyed, this reduces the supply of agricultural product, that can lead to the increase in the price of commodities. Then investment in gold, real estate, stocks, mutual fund and other assets are some of the ways to deal with inflation. Okay, so then we are going to discuss the different types of inflation. So now we are going to discuss the different types of inflation. So on the basis of rate of inflation, we have open inflation, repressed inflation, hyperinflation. Hyperinflation, we already discussed that the inflation is high for a short span of time, so that is hyperinflation. Then creeping inflation, very slow inflation. Then moderate inflation. Then walking inflation, that is a single digit numbers, for example 3 to 10%, then that is walking inflation. Then running inflation, so 10 to 20% rise in the prices, so that is known as running inflation. Then galloping inflation, extraordinary high, for a particular product the price was 100 rupees, it's 20 to 50% rise in that price level, so that is known as a galloping inflation. Okay, so these are some of the types of inflation on the basis of rate of inflation, right? Now on the basis of causes, we have demand pull inflation, cost pull inflation. Okay, so what do you mean by demand pull inflation? So that is aggregate demand is high but the supply is less, so that is known as demand pull inflation. Okay, we can write as aggregate demand greater than aggregate supply, so that is demand pull inflation. Next, cost push inflation, so that is due to the increase in the cost of input like raw material. So when the raw material cost is high, so that can lead to the increase in the price level. So cost of production will increase, and cost of production increases mean the price level will increase. So they have to maintain the balance, right? So higher wage means cost of production is high, so prices of the commodities normally will get increased. So that is cost push inflation. So that is another one. Okay, now the creeping and moderate inflation, like I told, that is coming under on the basis of rate of inflation. We have creeping means on the basis of rate of inflation. So creeping means a very slow rate only, that is 1 to 3% increase in the price. So that is coming under the creeping inflation. So moderate means it's neither too fast neither too slow, but price level is changing, so that is known as the moderate inflation. Then one more thing is walking inflation. Walking inflation means 3 to 10% variation, that is change in the price. So that is walking inflation. Then we have galloping inflation. So that is extraordinary height. That is 20 to 30% or 50% rise in the price. So that is galloping inflation. So these are some of the type of inflation on the basis of rate of inflation, right? Here demand and the cost push inflation on the basis of causes. Okay, so demand pull and cost push inflation. So the differences between these two is that demand push inflation means when the demand is high, that can leads to the increase in the price level. So that is demand push inflation. Cost push means when there is an increase in the cost of factors of production, it can leads to the increase in the price. So that is known as cost push inflation. So it can be due to the wage push inflation, that is wage will increase and that can leads to the increase in price. Profit push inflation, and material cost also increase and that can lead to the increase in price. So that is coming under cost push inflation. Okay, so the last topic is what are the measures for controlling the inflation, what all things we can do, so the government can do to control the inflation. So monetary measures are there, fiscal measures are there, other measures are there. So under monetary measures, the credit control, demonetization of currency, issue of new currency. So these are some of the ways through which the government can control the inflation. Then fiscal measures are cut in the expenditure, increases in the taxes, increases in the savings, surplus budgets, public debt also are the fiscal measures. Other measures are raising production, rational wage policy, price control, rationing also are the other measures. Okay, so monetary measures can be by the RBI, that is RBI used to put forward these monetary measures. So that is change in the bank rate or the repo rate. So then open market operations by the government is selling its securities. Now the disinvestment is happening, right? So that is another measure through which the government can induce induce the money flow and can control the economy and thereby control the inflation. Then monetary measures successful for effective in demand pull inflation. Okay, so but it has a monetary measures have a negative impact on the economic growth. Okay, then fiscal measures, that is government will cut down its expenditure, then increases the tax. Government expenditure, that is government reduce the spending, then increases the taxes. Tax increase means people will have less money for spending, so definitely the price level will go down. Okay, so that is fiscal measures. High direct taxes, low government spending, reduction in the amount of government sector borrows each year. Government can curb its expenditure to bring the inflation control. So these are the fiscal measures through which the Okay, so the monetary measures can be the bank rate policy, open market operation, cash reserve ratio, or some of these are initiated by the by the Reserve Bank of India. So these are some of the way through which the inflation can be controlled. Okay. Now, what are the effects of inflation? The inflation has an effect on production, then distribution, then debtors and creditors, the entrepreneurs, then investors, farmers, wage earners, middle class. All sectors of the economy will get affected by the inflation. So each and every one, like currently due to the pandemic, all sectors are getting affected, right? So that has an impact on the entire economy. So the inflation has an impact on the entire economy as a whole, right? Now, the how you can measure the inflation. Okay, so the inflation can be measured on the basis of price index. Okay, so price index means the change in the rate of price over a period of time as compared to an base year. So that is known as price index. Okay, so there is a base year there, and base year means the year with less natural calamities, with no alarming inflation rate. Okay, so there is comparatively good production happen, so that year is considered as a base year. Okay, so there are two types of price index for calculating or measuring the inflation, that is wholesale price index. Second one is consumer price index. So consumer price index is CPI. It was previously known as the cost of living index. Okay, so CPI is a better measure than the WPI, that is wholesale price index. Okay, so these are, then one more thing is that the producer price index also there, that is inflation from the point of industrial producers. Okay, so these are the different ways through which the inflation can be measured. In CPI, it is based on the retail price, that all distribution cost and taxes. Okay, so these are the important points coming under inflation. Clear? Okay, so that's the end of this video, and we covered important topics of unit 3 and 4. Okay, so please go through the video. If you like the content, please like, share and subscribe. Okay, so do well, practice and practice. Okay, so definitely the victory will be yours only, right? So we will come with the next video. So till then, stay safe, stay calm, stay healthy, and prepare well, pray well. Okay, thank you.